April 27th, Louie Giglio. Don't give the enemy a seat at your table. Remove the chair. Mesmerized middle schoolers leaned in hard toward the man in the front of the chapel. With his whole body and the whole range of his voice, he transported the kids to a battle in the Middle East, where a teenage shepherd stepped up to battle a giant with a massive sword, a giant all the other soldiers were afraid to fight. In the pews, kids' eyes grew wide. The speaker told them the king warned the kid not to try to fight the giant. He'd get killed. But the boy said, "When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine." In the pews, kids' mouths gaped open. The speaker whirled his imaginary slingshot around and around his head, and he cut it loose. He cast an imaginary stone, and the rock hit the God-mocking giant smack in the forehead, and he fell down dead. The man's eyes blazed, and he pointed at the campers. You can slay the giants in your life, too. In the audience, 14-year-old Louie Giglio felt as if the man were pointing right at him. Later, Louie and his buddies went out and each found 5 killer rocks, like David had. They wanted to consecrate their rocks to God at the next night's service and prove they had what it took to be like David, to be giant slayers too. Then, somewhere between middle school and full maturity, Louie found out who his giant actually was, and who was the only one who could bring that giant down. Louie couldn't do it. His giant slayer was Jesus. On the job, Louie had come under a lot of pressure. He felt like he was being attacked. People at work got more and more critical, and the idea that a conspiracy was afoot got a toehold. The giant in his head whispered everyone was against him. And that creepy voice was sounding louder than God's. Louie got so obsessed with this idea, he texted a long and miserable message to a friend, and his friend texted back with a short and wise one. Don't give the enemy a seat at your table. 9 words. 9 words that Louie never forgot. 9 words that shaped the rest of his life. Louie realized he had to shift his focus from whatever giant was holding him back to Jesus Christ, who had already defeated Louie's spiritual enemies on the cross. Knowing this made it possible for Louie to shift his thinking in a big way. Since Jesus had prepared a table for Louie, the giant he was obsessed with had no business poisoning the table talk. Then, in 1995, at a conference on worship, Louie heard a speaker named John Piper. It was the message he had been waiting to hear, about not worshiping God for the sake of worshiping, but for spreading the fame of Jesus. It was exactly what David had done when he faced Goliath and shouted, "You come against me with a sword, spear, and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord of armies, the God of the ranks of Israel. This whole assembly will know that it is not by sword or by spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's." 1 Samuel 17, 45 and 47. David had glorified God and lit a passion for him among the armies of Israel. It was the same kind of passion Louie wanted to ignite in others. During the break, Louie spotted Piper, seated alone in the cafeteria, about to enjoy a forkful of green beans. Louie approached unannounced. "Dr. Piper, I hate to interfere with your meal, but I want you to know I haven't heard 5 people in my life speak the way you did." Piper's reply was simple. "Well, why don't you be one? And then there will be 6. Why couldn't he be one? Why couldn't he inspire everybody to give glory to God? That question grew into a spiritual mandate. and it sparked a student movement called Passion, which spread around the world. Whose renown are you fighting for? Don't give the enemy a seat at your table. Remove the chair.
Fellas, my name is Justin Brown. I'm a lieutenant with Aurora Fire Rescue out of Aurora, Colorado. And this is April 27th, and we just heard the story of Pastor Louie Giglio. Pastor Giglio has a very special place in my heart. Our paths crossed back in '97 at his Passion 97 conference. I was late in my years of college and struggling to find my own identity through myself and through Christ. I made a big choice to finally follow Christ and make my faith my own instead of my parents. And he played a big role in the things he said during his conference in '97, and I attended his conference in '98. One thing he made certain was to make sure that God's first in your life, and that you don't give the enemy a seat at your table. Take that chair away. Are you slaying the giants in your life as David and Goliath, as we all know? If not, I come to challenge you to not forget the promise that God has spoken into each of our lives, that if we turn to Him when things are bad, and things will be bad, that He promises to not leave our sides. With Him we can conquer all. And Jeremiah 29:11 says He has a plan for our life, a plan to prosper us and not to harm us. So I challenge you today, if you're facing Satan, don't face him alone. Satan comes in many forms, shapes, and sizes. Don't give Satan an inch. He'll take a mile. Face Satan with the full promise that God, our Creator, has given us. God bless.